Hello, and welcome to In the Roud. Greetings and salutations, dear listeners. This is In the Roud, a folk song podcast, and I am your host, Matt Quinn. Join me as we travel through the world of traditional folk song, one song per episode, in the order they appear in the Roud Index. Each episode will feature two guests, one providing an historical look at the song, while the other will be a singer from the folk music scene to talk about their own version of the song. This podcast is proud to be partly sponsored by the Traditional Song Forum. Meeting regularly, both in person and online, the TSF provides a place for a variety of topics related to folk song, song collectors, singers, and many other aspects of folk song research to be presented and discussed. It's free to join, and most meetings are free to attend. So discover more about the TSF at www.tradsong.org. That's www.tradsong.org. So let's get going. This week's song is Roud 46, that's Child Ballad 66, Lord Ingram and Chiel Wyet. This one really is an unheard child ballad. I mean, there's almost nothing. Absolutely nothing on the folk revival and modern recording side of things anyway, and not a lot to talk about in terms of the history either. But there are always things to discuss, and for this one I've brought back my regular unknown child ballad enthusiast, Helen Lindley. Well, hello and welcome back to In the Roud, Helen Lindley. Hello.
Hello, Matt, and how are you today?
I'm very well indeed, thank you, I think. Just the light is approaching, not in terms of the light at the end of the tunnel, in terms of life and death, but in terms of it's been we're recording this mid-November. It's I've had a monumentally busy and stressful couple of months, and the light is approaching at the end, of the stress tunnel, shall we say? And I'm heading towards it full steam. So I'm feeling pretty good for a change. How are you?
Oh yeah, I'm not a fan of winter. I don't do well when it's dark and getting darker. So I'm just waiting for the end of February, and then it'll all start getting lighter again.
It's suddenly taken a turn for the cold. We're recording this. Actually, if people are listening to this on the day the episode goes out, we're recording this yesterday. It's Tuesday, the 18th of November, and it's certainly the last day or two has taken a turn for the cold. I went out for a drive last night. I had somewhere to go. I didn't just drive, but I was driving somewhere last night and back, and it was where I live. It was 1 degree, and then in the country roads on the Peak District I was driving, it was 0 degrees. So
yeah, it's 0 degrees here, and because we're quite high up. For Lincolnshire, we're actually really high up.
I'm currently at 5 degrees, feels like 1. So.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? I don't mind crisp cold. It's the rain of last week that I'm not a fan of. So
yeah. So fun, cold times.
Yes,
especially times to look at ballads no one's heard of.
Oh, I know, but that's why we do it, isn't it?
And that's what you do, and that's what you're here for. We had you last on In the Roud for 2 episodes in a row back in the previous season. You were on for Kempi K and Hind Etin. There's a link to Hind Etin with this one, only in the fact that I've got the same book on off my shelf that I was looking at last time for Hind Etin, but we'll come back to that. We're looking at, basically a song that you're the only guest for this episode, which implies, as I've done the research already, basically there doesn't appear to be anyone that's ever had a go at this song on the folk revival, let's say. But also on the traditional side, I can't find any field recordings. There's no sound recordings in the Roud Index for this song either. There's nothing apart from a few things we'll talk about. But Roud 46, Child Ballad 66, Lord Ingram and Chiel Wyet. Yeah, I mean, okay, as usual, start us off. What are we dealing with in plot wise and story wise?
Um, there were five versions in Child, and it's quite interesting because there's there's similarities between them, but they're not all the same. In some instances, and in the majority of instances, Lord Ingram and Chiel Wyet are brothers. In one version, I think it's version C, it's uncle and nephew. Um, and basically, the depending on which version, there's two guys in love with the same woman, and she ends up being pregnant by one of them, but is told to marry the other. The two chaps fight at the end, they die, and she goes mad. Although in some cases she goes a bit mad and then says it's all her fault. But yeah, on the whole, it's a simple story of chaps fighting over a woman.
I did look this up on the Roud Index as well. 12 entries in the Roud Index. In the folk song index, zero entries in the broadside index. And I'm just looking it all up now, and I think I think all 12 of them, they're either books that have got their version from the Child Ballad collection, or they are the sources where Francis James Child got it for the Child collection, like Motherwell and things, the Motherwell manuscript, or Bronson as well. The tunes, we'll come to that later on. And so it's not, yeah, it doesn't appear to be. It's not widely found at all. 12, and
No,
for a few of them are duplicates and things.
I suppose there are a lot of similarities with other songs. This story of two chaps in wanting the same woman is not a particularly unique tale.
Well, in its bare
Um,
bones of that sentence, you've got a gender reversal of the two sisters,
yeah,
effectively, but then it plot wise not at all, but in that basic sort of concept. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
they're usually brothers, aren't they? But there's one. Did you say one is like uncle and nephew?
Yeah, whatever it is, I think Ingram's meant to be the older. So whether it's an older brother and a younger brother, or an uncle
Yes.
a nephew.
Oh, I think
Um,
Child says the only variation in the five versions of this tragedy is that in version C, the bridegroom and the lover are not brothers, but they're uncle and nephew. So normally, oh, that's the one I got annoyed with, version C. I was looking this up before we started and got annoyed because the woman in that one is Lady Maisdry. And since we've
yes,
just last week we've done Lady Maisry, and there are versions of, I think it was either Fair Janet or Child Waters 2 or 3 weeks ago, where one of the versions had Lady Maisry in it. And I thought,
yeah.
can't they just differentiate the names here? And
Well,
then
Masory is in effect a contortion of Mary.
it's all Mary, Margaret, and all that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
which in biblical times meant lady.
Yeah,
It wasn't actually a name, a first name originally. Mary was just like maid, or as in not a maid who does jobs around the house, as in maiden, or
yeah,
so all these names that have a stem of Mary really are just a female title.
yes,
So, but they've become names, obviously.
indeed. But in that one, yeah, Old Ingram, as in AULD, Old Ingram, and Lord Wayet, Wayet, Lord, 'tis I forbid ye, Old Ingram, for to seek me to espouse. For Lord Wyatt's your sister's son has been into my bowers. So yeah, uncle and nephew in that one.
But there are all sorts of slight differences. Um, just in how, I mean, in version B, I mean, she gets pregnant is one of the things that happens in this story,
Yeah,
from the one she's sleeping with. And in version B, for example, she's already told her dad and the man she's going to marry about that the fact she's already pregnant. Um, and so then when they say, well, you're not a good woman, it's like, well, I did tell you. But there is a little bit of an onus, as you find in these songs, where they have put the blame a little bit on the woman. And I'm not altogether convinced with our modern eyes we accept that.
Yeah.
Knowing that, and there's a certain a piece of that the reason she repents in the end for her sins in a couple of versions, and it's sort of we know that from history of the time that. And still does happen where very often the woman is blamed for the fact that she led the man astray, or it was her fault that he couldn't control himself, or anything around that. So you sort of look at this a little through modern eyes of, well, is that really the case?
Indeed, indeed. Actually, I've
But
just realised something looking through all the versions in Child just now. Me saying I got annoyed with version C because it was Maisry. Her name in all of the other versions in Child is Maisry.
yeah, it
And
is Maisry. Yeah,
and so that connects it only by name to the previous one, but it's like all these ballads having William and Margaret and Thomas and Alan and
yeah,
Ellen and whatever.
yeah. It's like reading. It's like going through history, isn't it? There's. Well, I'll tell you
Ah,
what. We'll do some history. Let's start with King Henry. Yeah, but which one?
which one?
And then when you get to Henry VIII and he got a wife, well, yeah, he's got a wife called Catherine. Yeah, which one?
Got two. Indeed,
So
indeed.
I suppose we're used to living with that. Certainly in British history, we're very much used to that concept that all these people have the same name.
Yeah,
So why it should be any different in British folk songs is,
indeed so. So what are we talking about in terms of how far we can trace this back? Where do we have
well,
a date that we can go back to? It must be one of the versions in Child.
I mean, it's a bit. I suppose if you take it strictly speaking, that it has been traced back to Danish songs.
Oh yeah, we'll come to that later on. I think
I mean,
definitely.
they've got an earlier date on one of sort of early 1800s, which I suppose if you're taking something that is also in Scandinavian ballad history, would not be unreasonable
Yeah,
because the crossover, as we know, between a lot of the ballads that Child has, or the ballads in English, Irish, British song history, often do have this crossover. And I've certainly not found anything earlier than that, although I don't know how old the Danish ones actually are, because there
mm,
is there have been a few links. You know how Child was very, very keen on giving things history where there might not have been.
yes,
So
indeed.
in some ways, there's sort of attempts to link it back to Shakespeare stuff, but given that a lot of Shakespeare stuff has come out of old tradition, has come out of old myth.
Yeah,
It's that's where they all go, isn't it? They all go back to Shakespeare and trying to find links that might not really be there,
indeed.
or that they're just old myths that have been around for since storytelling began.
Yeah,
I'm totally convinced that this story of two people fighting, particularly two men fighting over a woman, is is not an abnormal topic in history ever.
indeed, indeed. Yeah, I've just found one entry for this in the Rad Index that goes to a book called "The North Country Garland," 1824, by James Maidment, uh, edited by James Maidment, revised by Edmund Goldsmith, privately printed in 1891, but it was originally printed in 1824, and then in that, uh, someone's very nicely done a sort of almost like a scan of the book. So I'm just looking at it now. There we go. Child Wyet. Uh, Except it says Mr. Jameson in his Ballads Volume 2 has published from Mr. Hurd's manuscript, in which the story much resembles what occurs here. So here's so there's a version here.
Yeah, there are several, aren't there, with Viet spelt or Gil Viet even.
Yeah, one of the ones in
Um,
Child is Gil Wyet.
yeah, and then there's also one that is Fiat with an F instead, and with
Yeah.
Gil. And so I think it's fairly certain it's all the same.
Yeah, and 1828, Buchan's Ancient Ballads and Songs. Um, but maybe 1824, unless the Motherwell manuscript is earlier than that. My brain is not telling me the date of the Motherwell manuscripts.
Yeah, it's just it's like we encompass this or encounter this, should I say, a lot. We get to this point where there's nobody's been singing it, nobody's done any research on it apart from what Child did, and a few people have linked other things into that. But we end up with songs that have just been written down, and nothing more has happened to them since until we've come along.
Yes. Minstrelsy, it's Motherwell's manuscript. It's not Motherwell's manuscript. It's Motherwell's book, Minstrelsy, Ancient and Modern, publication 1827. So, published after the 1824 Maidment North Country Garland, but nevertheless around the same time.
Actually, I have just discovered this Skene manuscript was 1802 to 1803. I'd missed that bit because it's shoved in on another page on another, not the one I've got from the Child notes. But the original source of version B was the Skene manuscript taken down in the north of Scotland, 1802 to 1803.
Oh, there we go. Very good. Lord Ingram and Gil Vyett as Gil for Gil and Viet for Gil Vyett
Yeah.
and Lady Masery. 21 verses, but there are some dots, so some
Yeah,
missing
there's quite
bits.
a few spaces within that. But interestingly, it's version B, I believe, that's the one that is where she's already told them, yeah, I'm pregnant.
Right.
Yes, I told you once, I told you twice that yes, I've already, that the other brothers come to my bed already.
Yeah. I'm just looking in the Minstrelsy Ancient and Modern. This beautiful ballad, which appeared in the North Country Garland before referred to. So this book is Ancient and Modern is referring to the 3 years previously book North Country Garland that I mentioned. But then, yeah, the Skene manuscript, 1802 to 1803. So there we go. That might be the earliest mention we can find of this song then.
Yes, I've just found the actual line. How can I get up and put on my bridal gown and marry the A brother, i.e., the other brother, with the tither's babe in my womb?
Oh,
So she said that to her father. So yes, it's the only one where it isn't. She's already owned up that she's expecting a
right.
child in. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think there are so many. There are a lot of similarities, but it's very garbled as a whole. Is a sort of theme.
Yes.
So it was quite an effort to sort through it to try and find where you can take a single story from these varying versions, and especially as there are several versions with chunks missing.
Right. Yes, of course. And a lot of them are quite long as well.
Yes, they are.
Go through Child. Version A has 31 verses. Version B has 21. Version C has 34. Version D's got 10, but there's some bits missing. And version E has 44 verses.
Yes. So I
So
sort of get why nobody fancied it, to be honest. And
it's long and mildly convoluted, and
yeah, there's a lot of repetition in some of them where they mention lots of gifts and what each especially Lord Ingram bringing, and it's like and I can imagine, yes, that if you're singing it in a pub in the 19th century, you might get away with mentioning every gift and the reaction to that gift. But
yeah.
I don't think we do that now.
No, indeed, indeed. But yes, we're sort of running out of things to say already, aren't we, really, about this one?
I mean, the way I see it is I took all five versions
Yeah,
and took elements from each to try and get a cohesive story that would enable a song to be sung about it.
yeah,
So there are elements from all of it, but at the same time giving it a sort of not having it all repetitious because you don't want too much repetition in in song unless it's carrying the story forward.
Yeah, that's true. But
Um,
you get a lot of increment repetition is always in threes in folk songs, it seems.
yeah, they just, they sort of describe this, then we talk about how somebody reacted to it, and then there's what somebody else said about it. And again, in the days before TV and radio, then that would keep people entertained. But
Yeah.
we're in a different era, and it's only the very, very ardent folk lover who will actually tolerate us turning what can be a 3 minute song into a 21-minute song.
Indeed so. And then tunes wise, if you go to Bronson, this is Bertrand Bronson's magnum opus, the tunes for the child ballads. There's only two tunes for this listed for this one, and neither are possibly correct. He wrote a note saying the tunes here given from the Blakey manuscript may have no genuine right to this association. The sole connecting link in the absence of words is the title of the first tune, Lord Ingram. But the tune suits ill with the metre of any known text of the present ballad, and yeah, to my ear, it suggests a refrain on the second, fourth line. There's some stuff about quatrains and things. The other tune, though acknowledged as a variant, is called in the manuscript Earl Laudale, a title to which I do not recall a text. C.K. Sharp, that's the non-Cecil Sharp one, in his ballad book has preserved two songs on Lauderdale, both unrelated to this ballad. So we've got two 1578 tunes, probably neither relation to the song, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, because of the word Ingram, Bronson has put them in here, and they're quite similar actually. I had a go at them before we started this. There's no words for these, just tunes. So da 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 bum bum da 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 bum ba da dum dum. Well, it's quite nice, but yeah, again, if you look at the text in Child, as Bronson found, doesn't quite fit. And then Earl Lauderdale, Earl Lauderdale, is quite similar. Bum 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 ba dum bum bum ba da ba da 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 ya da 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 dum da 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 ya da 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 ya da da da.
That end note has very much got a sort of Scottish song feel, hasn't it?
I guess so. Yeah, it's got a little bit of that in it.
Yeah, that end bar is
But they're quite nice sort of tunes in and of themselves, but quite possibly have no actual link to the song we're dealing with. But nevertheless, but Bronson put them there because of the word Ingram, basically.
yeah, and there are other songs that mention Ingram, so it's just as likely they've come from
Yes.
something else. But yeah, they don't fit, and they don't feel like they should belong given the subject of the songs. There needs to be a little bit of work where you feel like the tune can fit with the topic.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, they don't. I mean, I just, as you know, I will, if I can, incorporate elements of an old tune to fit the song I'm resetting. But there was just nothing in there that made me think, nah, I thought could use them for something else at some point,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not particularly on this particular song.
So have you just written your own melody
I
for this
wrote a
one?
new one because that's what I
Excellent,
do.
excellent. Very good.
Well, what tends to happen is on this one, actually, it was a little bit different because usually I start with a rhythm. But on this, I started by ploughing through for several weeks the lyrics. And it was harder than I think the last song I did that was this hard to do was possibly Tom Potts that I did for Sing Yonder.
Oh yeah, we'll come to that one in
Next year sometime.
is it next year?
I think so.
Yes, next summer.
Yeah.
Come to the Tom Potts discussion. You're in the diary.
But this one, yeah, it was when you've got several versions, and you've got a lot of dialect and you've got a lot of dots because there's gaps in the story of varying versions. It's not always as straightforward. I mean, I did when I did something like Kempi K or Hind Ettin, they are quite easy because there's not too many versions, there's not too many verses. You can generally piece something together quite quickly. But this one was several weeks of work
Well,
to find where the story should go, taking
yeah.
it from the different versions. So by taking a bit from one version, a bit from another, you can get to a whole eventually. But then you've got to have it in usable language.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your efforts on this.
Yes. And then I actually came to quite like it, but trying to do the melody then requires living with it. So it usually starts with me coming up with a melody, almost any melody, and eventually the melody that's going to be the melody comes from that by my going around the house humming it, singing it while washing up, doing all these things, and eventually I get like the core melody that I'm going to work with. And then the little tweaks happen, and it might be a tweak in lyrics because it doesn't scan as well as I would like, and then you realise actually that little group of notes would be better off if it would change slightly, and then eventually. And I will admit that I am still sometimes thinking, oh, do I go with this or that version?
Yeah, yeah.
And what you end up doing is thinking, well, actually, I could do it so one verse has this little bit and one verse has another little bit, just to give a little bit of variation in the song. So I've taken, I have got one, two, three, four, five, six. I've got 8 4-line verses, but my 4-line verses are actually 8 lines from the ballads because they have them in very short batches of 4 lines.
Right.
But I find that it can be a little too da 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 if you
Yeah,
do
sure.
that. So by putting 2 lines together to make one longer line, just makes it a little more singable and a little less repetition in the song.
Very good. Well, we'll hear that later on.
Yes, and that's basically what I did is coming up with something. In my version, I don't specify whether they're brothers or uncle and nephew. But it's definitely older Ingram that I refer to. So he's very definitely the older. Yes, they both love Masery. And the family all approve of Lord Ingram. And so Chiel Wyet comes to her in secret.
Okay.
And there's a phrase that in some she's in love with Chiel Wyet, but in others she isn't. You know, he's just come to her bed, and take from that however you want to interpret it. So I've taken that as couldn't refuse him, and then it's up to the singer to decide: is it that he's forced himself on her, or that she found him totally, sort of mesmerizing and couldn't refuse him. But Ingram's the richer because he's the one that brings the most gifts. And there was a version about how the gifts are to her father's hall, which to me implies that that he's not necessarily bringing the gifts for her; he's bringing them to impress her father.
Right. Yeah.
So I took that. Meanwhile, Wyatt's gone to her bed. But her father's come to her and said, well, you need to get dressed for your wedding because you're going to get married to Lord Ingram. Obviously, even though he's older, I think he's much older. So she's being told who she's going to marry, most likely based on the gifts that, the wealth that he has. But she says, actually, I think I should marry Wyatt because I can't be Lord Ingram's wife for reasons only I know. So she obviously knows she's pregnant and hasn't owned up yet. I like the bit about in one of the, well, I think it's more than one version actually. It took 24 men to get her to the church.
Right. Wow. Okay.
So there's one where little extravagance of 24 milk white doves flying around her head. But I thought it just adds a little bit of lightness to the idea of they're trying to march her to church, but oh yeah, hey, we've got some doves for you.
Huh.
And then she gets to church. The organ's playing, the bells are pealing, but she's getting no joy from that because she's crying. Then they have the wedding feast, and then they're led to their chambers. And then he's laid his hand on her and said, you've got a babe within you. And she says, well, will you be its father? And I'll give you a castle. And he says, no.
Oh, okay. Simple as
So this was taken between the several versions. I said, no, I thought you were a good woman. You're obviously not. And then her dad comes in the next morning and says, what's this I'm hearing? And he says, I thought you were a good woman. So there's very much this, her new husband and father think it's all her fault.
that.
But
Oh,
she
right,
turned
yeah.
around and said, hold your tongue, because you forced me into this marriage because I said I didn't want to marry him, which she does in a couple of versions. She says, no, I don't want to marry. I did tell you this without telling you why. But anyway, Chiel Wyet comes along with a sword and tells Ingram to rise up. And then he basically stabs Ingram. Ingram stabs him back. Them two are dead, and she goes mad. She loses her mind, which is a theme in several of them. But there are a couple where it does say, oh, yes, well, Ingram was a good man and I was the one in the wrong. And I didn't feel I could put that version in
No.
for modern singing because it is a little bit, we don't know quite how she. I suppose you could take it. Oh yes, well she's the temptress, and it's all her fault. But that doesn't really necessarily fit with what I wanted to sing.
Yeah.
My song, my song, my rules.
Quite so. Quite so.
And it is. It's there are so many songs with the woman is wronged, and we can sing all those, and there are some that I do sing, but there was enough in this to suggest otherwise that I felt for a modern audience, let's bring those out
Yeah.
because it gives it that feel then that somebody would like to sing it, and you want people to feel comfortable being able to sing them in a variety of locations. Because sometimes, as we know, there are some songs that are sung and you can put them on, a record that you're doing, or you can sing them in your own gig, whatever. But if you want people to then sing it down a pub, it's got to be singable
Yeah.
and open
Quite so.
to what the majority would want to hear. So
Indeed.
that is how I came about these, taking all these different versions. Somewhere she's been wronged and somewhere she is in the wrong, to take a path through to come out with a song that is usable.
Indeed. So.
But it just, yes, I think the idea that the men forced her into stuff is not there's no shock in that tale because that is how marriage worked for rich women
Yes.
of the time.
Indeed.
And a younger man forcing himself on her, whether or not she, in the first instance, probably did like him and probably would have married him had she been allowed, but he hadn't got the money.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
So that's that really.
There you go. But we have found a link to a Danish ballad, just like last time you were on when we did Hind Etin. Um, I'm very lucky that on my shelves I do have all three volumes of Pryor's ancient Danish ballads, and in the middle of volume two, in the section called "Song," is it Legendary Ballads? No, it's called. There's a section two of volume two is called Ballads of Romance. We have a ballad called Ebby or Ebba, I guess, with a little line across the second E. Ebba Scamelson, being Ebba, the son of Sir Scammell, in this case. And this ballad, yeah, I mean, this basically is it, with a whopping great 59 verses, which is excellent, I think. Pryor's written here, it just says, yeah, whether the fearful tragedy detailed in this ballad is historically true seems uncertain. And basically, not sure whether it's true or not. It starts off by saying northward in Thai or THY. I think I think there is a so the start of northward in Thai, Sir Scammell dwelt, and in the notes we got the authors of Dansk Atlas referred to an a person called Ebby Scamelson from a place called Norrentoft on Tye. Bit like Chapel on the Frith, but
Yeah.
Norrentoft on Tye. But the ballad is Northwood on Tye, but there may have been Ebby Scamelson from Norrentoft on Tye. Sir Scammell dwelt, for wealth and goodness known. 5 sons had he, so courtly bred, and 2 to manhood grown. I wonder, do you think that implies that the other 3 died young?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. And so we've got 2 brothers. This one is about 2 brothers rather than the father son or the uncle nephew. It's about the 2 sons, Ebby and Peter. The one hight Ebby Scamelson, and Peter won the young. A doleful story it is to hear the fate that o'er them hung. And so in this one we have Ebby is the key character. He has rowed off to an isle far away and betrothed to fair Adelaide, a sweet and lovely May. So that's where does Adelaide come from in this case? That was the name Adelaide. I wasn't not expecting that in a Danish ballad.
No.
I wonder if that's just a translation from something, because this is a translated text, but I'm not sure. Maybe listeners will know. But he wins. I'm going to attempt to get through 59 verses in paraphrasing form, because listeners do not want me to either write a tune and sing it or just recite it. But he brings Adelaide home to his mother's house, and then he goes off to see again to the royal court to serve his king. This is Ebba. And then he basically says, whilst I'm away, keep your honour in mind while I'm away, while I'm serving at court. And whilst he's away at court, his brother Peter stays at home, and her his true love woos. So Peter is being a naughty boy, yes, Ebba goes to the king, serves the king at court. Peter builds a ship and rigs it out for sea. And whilst Peter has sailed off to the king, Peter sails to North Jutland to court his brother's bride. And Peter turns up and says, "Greetings, gentle Adelaide. If you would love me, your favors I will requite." And she says she's being very good about this. "How could I plight my love to you, or share your house and land? Your brother Ebba, he it is to whom I've pledged my hand." And she said, I vowed to wait 8 whole years for him. And Peter says, but he lies, and Ebba is in the royal court and makes your love his jest. And this turns up a lot in ballads about the broken token ones, where you get the guy who spots his true love on the cliff top, and he says, perhaps your true love loves another, and all this sort of thing. And then Ebba and Peter's mother joins in the conspiracy now to get Adelaide to wed to Peter, and says, accept Peter because Ebba, he is a knave. And then she's still holding fast. Ebba, he is in the royal court, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, frivolous way of saying it. And then the mother says, so take Peter, my younger son, with all his towers so red, for Ebba Scamelson, be sure another maid will wed. So the mother is digging her heels in and wanting Adelaide to marry Peter.
Makes you wonder if Adelaide's rich, doesn't it?
Quite possibly. Does it mention it here? I'll just go back a few verses. No, she's just introduced as Fair Adelaide. And she still says, nay, hark thee, Peter, choose thee some other wife. I give no other man my troth as so long as he has life. And they both double down on this and say, actually, here's the truth. Ebba died last autumn. And she instantly gives in because you heard he's died. She basically says okay and gives her hand to Peter. And they hasten for the marriage feast. And all this time, Ebba knows nothing of this. And after 2 months have passed, Ebba wakes in the dead of night, having had a vivid dream. And he speaks to his comrade about this. and says, "It seemed that though my room of stone a glowing fire did glide, and there my brother Peter burn, and burn my lovely bride." So he's dreamt that his brother and his bride-to-be are both burning. And they say, these comrades say, that means that trouble is at hand. And he goes to the king and says, basically, and gains his furlough, asks to be allowed to go home to find out if anything's gone wrong. I love this line. This is verse 27 out of 59, by the way, folks. "In eager haste he mounted horse, and he so swiftly flew. A 7 days' journey home from court, the same he rode in 2." He's so eager to get home that he didn't manage a 7 days' journey in 2 days on
Woo!
horseback. That's a very committed horse. And he arrives back on their wedding day. And this turns up in a lot of ballads. You get a thing about
Yeah.
the previous lover turning up at his true love's wedding day to say, how could you lie on your true love's bosom? How could you eat another man's wine? I sing another ballad called "The Nobleman's Wedding" on that very subject. But he turns up at the wedding day, and he's met, and he sees everyone dressed so gaily. And then he is met by his sisters. Oh, so I don't think the other siblings are dead. I think they're sisters, because because there's 5 children. So going back to verse 1, Sir Scammell. Oh, 5 sons had he. Okay, 5 sons.
So we haven't
2 of them
included the
vanished.
women because they're just women.
Yeah, but then they tell later. So he's got 2 sisters as well. So Sir Scammell's got 7 children.
Yes.
The busy boy, Sir Scammell. Outside stood Ebba's sisters 2 with gold cups in each hand. "Oh, welcome, Ebba, brother dear, welcome back to your native land." So they're at least very happy to see him. And basically, but his sisters are pleased to see him. His parents are not. His parents stood aloof, and welcome showed him none. And I think the father wants to send him away. And I'm paraphrasing about 6 verses here. I think the parents pray him enter, but Ebba Scamerson turns away and fain would ride away. His mother caught and held the rein and begged him there to stay. She brings him a cushioned stool. That's very nice of her. And says, "Please sit." And he says, "No, leave me to pour the wine." He gazes upon Adelaide and with grief at heart sighs. She turns to leave the banquet hall. He runs up and says, "Do you not remember the plighted troth you gave me?" And she says, I've since to your brother." I've skipped to verse 43 here. I'm paraphrasing a lot out of a long ballad. "I've since to your brother plighted troth given all I had to thee, but will a mother be to you as long as you may live." So she's saying that she is now committed to the marriage to Peter, but she will somehow be a mother to Ebba, even though that's not what he wanted in the first place. Some people might like that sort of thing.
Yes.
No judgment, no judgments here. Sorry. "Not for a mother wooed I you, I wooed for you my wife, and therefore Peter Scamelson has now to end his life." And Ebba asks Adelaide. This all gets a bit convoluted now, or a bit sort of quick in terms of its plot twists and things. Ebba asks Adelaide to go away with him because he's going to slay his brother Peter. And Adelaide effectively says no, I think, at this stage. And Ebba is furious at this. And he mutters vengeance on them. He mutters it. To hear her, Ebba Scamelson, with anger fiercely frowned, and muttering vengeance on them both, stamped wildly on the ground. He's stamping in anger, but he's only muttering about it.
It's a bit like Rumpelstiltskin, isn't it?
There's a bit of that in it, yeah. And he leads Adelaide to the bridal house to let her go to bed, but he draws his sword and he slays her when she stands near her bed. And with a nice line, "and left her lofty crown of gold all swimming in her blood."
Oh, lovely.
I say it's a nice line. It's a nice line in terms of its
Graphic
linguisticness.
detail.
It's listing linguisticness rather than its subject matter, you see.
Yes,
Linguisticness, is that actually a word? It is now.
it is.
Um,
Yeah.
and he still a maid, and he took the gory, dripping sword slyly beneath his cloak. He hides the sword and goes back to the banquet hall and to his brother speaks. And he tells his young brother Peter, "It is time to leave the wine and the feast. Your bride sits on her bridal bed and seems for thee to pine." And Peter rises up, but and is very sad because his bride is pining for him. But he spies the rage in Ebba's face. But he carries on, and he goes towards Adelaide, towards the bridal house. But when his back is turned on Ebba, Ebba draws his sword and clefts his head in twain,
Lovely.
and him so foully slew. So Ebba's just killed both Adelaide and Peter at this point. And then we get some, and that's the end of the ballad, but we get 4 verses of like wrap up, kind of moral to the take sort of thing. And what happened next? So I'll just read these out. "Great was the grief in bridal house, and great the hall's dismay, for dead were bride and bridegroom both ere on their wedding day. His father got a grievous wound, his mother missed a hand, and Ebba Scamerson must forth a vagrant from the land." So he's banished. I assume his father. Yes, his father got a grievous wound, his mother missed a hand. So they're, yeah. His parents have banished him now, and he's going to have to be a vagrant.
Yes.
His brother murderously slain, and gentle bride lay dead, and far and wide must Ebba roam and beg his daily bread. So he's now a travelling sort of vagrant, beggar, hermit. "And from such a wedding, gracious God, hinder both young and old. Sour is the wine and harsh the mead, where such sad tales is told."
Yes.
But there we go. So that ends in total bloodshed, and then the offending party set out on the world as a vagrant, basically.
Yes. It's also, that's quite an interesting one because I did a song, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, which is Lord Thomas and Lady Margaret. And that happens to him because he's really unkind to the lady he's meant to love. And yeah, he gets cast out and he becomes a vagrant. But she's since married another chap and lives in a castle. And he comes to try and get, he comes begging at her door. So it is not an unusual line in folk song, really, that someone who's done something. But I suppose then there's also the argument of, yeah, but they're all working behind his back, so what did they expect?
Well, quite so. I mean, it's nice to find a Danish variant as
Yeah,
well, because sometimes a lot of you can take Child's claim about all these Danish and Nordic origins with a pinch of salt, but it's nice to actually find one that is clearly the same song, like we had with Hind Etin when we in these books we found Agnes and the Merman,
yes,
and so it's good to find that. But anyway, that's a little bit of I mean, yeah, it's tangent, but it's a relevant tangent. But we've basically stretched this quite a long time, so let's wrap up. Lord Ingram and Chiel Wyet, 12 entries in the Roud Index, 2 tunes in Bronson, 5 texts in Child. Yeah, not basically doesn't appear to have been sung much or at all in the oral tradition. Never been sung on the folk revival, and that's that.
yeah, that's it. There's nothing, nobody else was doing it, and that's what I really like about these podcasts. Is the fact that it's sort of forcing songs to it's forcing us to bring them back, or if we can, or at least bring a new version that somebody could sing if they chose to.
Yes, absolutely.
I
And
think it's really nice to have this option of working on these old songs.
now because of the podcast, you are the first person to sing this song.
Yes.
So there we go.
And I've had a few instances of that where people have come and said, people from abroad particularly have said, "Oh yes, you recorded this song. I'd never heard it, but I've started singing it in my American folk club or whatever." And I
Oh,
quite like the fact that it's enabling them to travel.
there we go. Exactly. Fantastic. And we'll hear your own setting of this in a minute or so. But otherwise, yes, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for coming back on this and being involved on another very rare child ballad. That's you for this season. I might possibly call on you in the next season. Not sure. The next time I've definitely got you in the diary is next summer. There's 3 episodes in season 7 that are ballads that basically no one's heard of, let alone done or sung.
Apart from me, isn't it?
Apart
Oh
from
no,
you.
that's the summer? Next summer is the one, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, that's next summer, season 7. There's 3 songs in that season that will be
Yeah. And
to
two of them
yours.
I think I've already written in. They were the two that Sing Yonder asked me to
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
write. So
that's right. Oh yeah, it's 2 for Sing Yonder that you did, and then 1 that I've asked you to do.
yeah.
But we'll come to that later on. Otherwise, in the meantime, Helen Lindley, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Matt. Oh Lord Ingram and Chiel Wyet were both born in one hall. Lady Maisry they both loved, but no honour had at all. Old Lord Ingram wooed the lady fair with leave of all her kin. Young Chiel Wyet in secret came, she couldn't refuse him, she couldn't refuse him. Rich Ingram bought so many gifts, he impressed her father's hall. Chiel Wyet took the lady fair within her sheets so small. One day her father came to her as Maisry dressed her head, saying, "Wear your wedding gown, my dear Lord Ingram, you shall wed, Lord Ingram, you shall wed." Well, I should marry Chiel Wyet, it's best that I wed he. I cannot be Lord Ingram's wife for reasons known only to me. 24 men it took to get her to be wed, and 24 milk-white doves did fly around her head, did fly around her head. Loudly played the sweet organ, the bells they pealed so clear. No joy they gave to Maisry, and down did pour her tears. The wedding feast had ended, the guests all went to bed. O Lord Ingram and Maisry, to chambers they were led, to chambers they were led. Lord Ingram laid his hand on her, and he exclaimed to she, "There is a babe within you, may the father be. Whoe'er the father may be, will you father it for me? And the fairest castle in the land your wedding gift shall be, your wedding gift shall be. I will not father your baby, nor ever I'll love thee. I thought you were a good woman in all the north country. Next morning in her father came, what's this I hear of thee? I thought you were a good woman in all the north country, in all the north country. Hold your tongue, my father dear, let all your sorrows be. I said no to old Lord Ingram, but you forced him on me. And then arrived young Chiel Wyet, well belted with a brand. Rise up, O Lord Ingram, said the younger man. He said the younger man. Chiel Wyet shook his yellow hair and wounded Ingram sore. Lord Ingram shook his coal-black hair and struck Chiel Wyet more. No pity then for 2 dead men, a maid that both maligned, but all lamented Maisry, ill used she lost her mind, ill used she lost her mind.
That was Helen Lindley singing Lord Ingram and Chiel Wyet. And that brings us to the end of the episode. What did you think? What are your thoughts on this song? Do you think there's a good reason why this song has never been looked at since way back when? Should we give it its chance to shine, or leave it where it is? I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to drop me an email at intherowd@singyonder.co.uk. That's intherowd@singyonder.co.uk. Or you can visit the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. Just search for In the Roud, a folk song podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would very much appreciate it if you would give us a little rating and review on wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps the podcast to reach a wider audience, all part of the big algorithm game. Over on our Patreon, we're in the middle of our current Singer's Choice mini-season with returning guest John Kirkpatrick, where we are covering 3 songs of his own choosing. If you feel so moved to support the podcast financially, then please do head on over to patreon.com/intherowd. That's patreon.com/intherowd, and you can sign up for either £5 or £10 per month and receive weekly bonus content. Life got in the way a bit last week and I was unable to sort out last week's Patreon episode, and so this week we have what I was going to do last week, which is John Kirkpatrick's second song choice. That's Roud 232, The Game of All Fours, with song history from Steve Roud. Sign up to hear this and more at patreon.com/intherowd. In the Roud is a media partner to Veteran, the traditional music label. Although this week's song does not currently feature on any of their releases, you can find details of their extensive catalogue on their website, veteran.co.uk. That's veteran.co.uk. One last huge thanks to this week's guest, Helen Lindley. Join me next week for episode 7. We'll be looking at Roud 47, which is child ballad number 68. That's the song called Young Hunting. My history guest will be returning contributor Vic Gammon, and my singer guest will be Hannah Sanders. Until then, that's it from me. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next time in the Roud.